Hi everyone and welcome to our CIO panel session at this year's CIO Summit. My name is Toby the Group CTO here at Logicalis, and I'm delighted to be joined by four exciting global senior leaders for our panel discussion. First, we have Gonçalo, the CIO for Pestano Hotel Group in Portugal. Gonçalo, tell the audience a bit about yourself and your organisation for us, please.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for the invitation from Logicalis and Toby to share a bit of my time and thoughts at the CIO Summit 2023. My name is Gonçalo Oliveira. I'm the CIO for the Pestano Hotel Group, which is based in Portugal, but we operate in 16 countries with 100 plus hotels spread across the North America, South America, Africa, and Europe. Really glad to be here and share a bit of our challenges in sustainability, driving technology forward in the hospitality business.
Thank you, Gonçalo. Also joining us today is Irvin, the CIO for Cinemas Land, based in Indonesia. Irvin, could you share a bit about yourself and your organisation?
Hi, thank you for inviting us attending as a panelist for Logicalis CIO Summit Panel 2023. My name is Irwan Yasni. I'm the CTO and also the CEO of the Technology Advisory and Business of Cinemas Land Group from Indonesia. So Cinemas Land Group, basically, we are one of the biggest property player in Indonesia, but actually we are not only operating in Indonesia, we do have some portfolio in other countries, such as UK, Australia, United States, China, and Malaysia as well.
Thanks, Irvin. It's great to have you here. On the panel today, we also have Fernando, the Executive IT Manager for Yamaha Motors based in Brazil. Fernando, could you share a bit about your role and your organisation for us?
Well, hello, and thank you for the invitation, Toby. Really a pleasure to be here with you and share some thoughts from our side. My name is Fernando Rostock. I'm the Executive IT Manager for the Yamaha Group here in Brazil, in South America. And well, I'm in the company for about three and a half years. So, well, thank you.
Thank you, Fernando. And our final guest for today's panel session is Nigel from UKRI, based out of the United Kingdom. Nigel, could you introduce yourself and your role, please?
Yep, good afternoon. My name is Nigel Townley. I'm Chief Technology Officer at UK Research and Innovation. As a public sector grant funding organisation, we fund about £8 billion a year in research and innovation. A key objective of my appointment was to help establish the required technology estate and to manage the transition to a common infrastructure from one that was highly fragmented that we inherited when UKRI was formed in 2014. Out of 9 organisations, including the 7 UK research councils.
Thanks, Nigel. It's great to have you here on the panel. Today's panel session is titled The CIO's Role in Driving Sustainability. We've heard earlier from IDC that the role of the CIO, particularly in the context of sustainability, is changing. So together we'll discuss what technologies are being implemented to optimise operations towards carbon reduction whilst maintaining business focus. So to start our panel discussion, I can see some exciting initiatives across companies and industries that are driving a digital path to sustainable IT, but I know from experience and from speaking to customers that it's not always easy. As a technology leader, what are your biggest challenges when it comes to driving sustainable business? Gonçalo, are you able to take this one first for us?
Thank you, Terry. Yes, you're right. It's not easy, and there are a lot of trade-offs when you start those discussions, right? I'm not going I'm just going to give you some common sense that's probably the people that are listening relate to. We're still at the stage where, on one hand, you have budget considerations, right? Everyone is saying technology is getting a bit more expensive. You have delays in deliveries from some relevant providers. There's this really impressive and relevant drive to push the digital agenda, right? You're trying to capture all those business initiatives really fast, and that's on one hand. On the other hand, you still have lack of awareness. So people do sometimes mistake when we speak of sustainability with let's be friendly to the environment. And it's much more than that. Not that being friendly to the environment is not a relevant thing. Of course it is, but sustainability is much more than that. So those trade-offs are still, the bringing of those trade-offs is still a challenge. Let me give you some key examples on that. In my organization, people do lack the ability to see, when we speak of total cost of ownership, we don't discuss total impact of ownership. If I might coin the term, right? We build business cases, 3-year, 5-year plans, but we don't build the impact of that hardware, those platforms, the energy costs that I was mentioning before, the technology that we're being used that needs to be replaced, who's going to keep that, who's going to salvage that. So we don't do a total impact analysis. We do a total cost of ownership analysis. We build hotels, right? We set up big infrastructures. I mean, we spend millions of euros or dollars in building an hotel. But we sometimes forget to say, how could we make it more sustainable, not only on the materials, the construction work, what you use there, but also how you operate that. And to do so, that's where technology plays a role. Where you say, if you have the right technology in place from the start, you can then optimize how that building is operating, that hotel is operating throughout its lifetime. And the lifetime can be 20, 30, 40 years. So it's a really large infrastructure playing a role for a number of years, decades. And how technology can support that to make sure, when we own a car, I mean, after some years, you need to make sure that what you're spending to make it work is worthwhile, that the equipments that you have there are worthwhile to do so. That's how we see sustainability. That's the challenge. Those are the trade-offs, some of the trade-offs that we're using. It's probably more interesting to spend more at the beginning, make sure you have the right technology in place, some stuff that Logicalis supplies. I mean, let's have it in place. Let's make sure that you operate it efficiently from the beginning.
Thank you, Gonzalo. I love that point of total impact analysis versus the total cost of ownership. It's an interesting theme. We're seeing a very common alignment here where our customers are saying that they're moving beyond one key metric of a cost metric and looking at other outcomes as well. So a very interesting point. Thank you. Irvin, over to you. What challenges do you face driving a sustainable business?
Okay, there are two main biggest challenges from our point of view. Of course, the first one, as Gonzalo mentioned, is and also the most of the CIO issue, right? It's about the budget, getting the budget approved, right? For sure it's a biggest challenge, right? We really need to put up some real use case, including the cost and benefit to the business every time we ask for the technology spending approved, right? And then the second biggest challenge is about around selecting the best technology partner to work with. Some technology partners, service providers, when they come to us, they may claim that their area is related to our needs, but most of the time it was just a marketing gimmick. Yeah, since they have no capable resource, lack of knowledge in the related platform, or even they have no idea what is the actual use case or business use case. Or some people call it as that they don't know, they are not knowing of the problem statement. So there are two things: budget and the technology partners.
Thank you, Irvin. This emerging area of sustainability requires a whole new level of expertise that we're just not seeing in great depth in the market today. So thank you for that perspective. Nigel, what do you see as your biggest challenge?
Well, probably like everyone else in a senior IT role, it's all about changing behaviour or getting buy-in. That's usually the biggest challenge. But most people in certainly our business and in others, when you ask them, they will say they want to help drive sustainability or reduce emissions, but don't know how. What can they uniquely do that would help contribute that? So I think the key is to make it really easy for them. Either it's just natural for them to operate as they want to operate, and by default, it's sustainable. The problem with that approach, though, is you're not really changing behavior, and people won't necessarily change behavior. But an alternative approach, and I think where there is an opportunity, is just to make it really visible what actions that people take on a day-to-day basis have on the impact on emissions and sustainability. And you can do that through either desktop agents that sort of explain how many, what emissions are being created by the work people are doing, or you can use things like digital signage and dashboards around the organization. In our British Antarctic Survey head office in Cambridge, for instance, as you walk through reception, there's a big digital screen that explains, or it's a live dashboard that shows how much energy is either being sent to the grid from the solar arrays or is actually being used directly from the solar arrays. And these are simple things that you can do just to raise that visibility.
Thank you, Nigel. Visibility is a really interesting point, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to cross over here with marketing and do some promotion, which PR isn't something we tend to do very well in IT. So thanks for that insight. Really common themes of what we're seeing all around the globe and all of our customer base of how do we actually get on with this sustainable practice? How do we align it back to what we're doing in the business? How do we find skill sets and then actually drive that forward and make it visible for all of our stakeholders and our customers? So thanks, everyone. So the second question I've got here is, we have a global group here of CIOs from all around the world at different stages on their path to sustainable IT. So what advice would you give other senior IT leaders? Fernando, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Actually, what I can tell you is that IT tech area, year after year, through partners like Logicalis and others, we can see offers in different areas that can help us achieving those goals. For instance, in the old days, we had here in Yamaha actually all our data centers on-premise. We have not used cloud solutions since 3-4 years ago. And you know that individual data centers are expensive, not only in terms of maintenance, but in terms of energy consumption, air conditioning, refrigeration. To tell some of those. And moving to cloud, despite of all other flexibility, alternatives like those moving to cloud are ones that help us understand what are the energy consumption if we have solutions inside the company or outside the company. For sure, sharing infrastructure with others in cloud solutions is better for the environment because we have a better utilization of the energy. You need to keep your eyes on these new ways that IT providers and IT partners address solutions to the market. I have mentioned it before, moving to cloud as one alternative that we are progressing with here in Yamaha in Brazil. There are other types of solutions like HaaS, hardware as a service, where you can rent electronic devices. So in the old days, everybody was used to buy, and then you have to individually, after end of life, you have to manage that electronic waste. Now with rent services, hardware as a service, you hire from big companies like Dell, HP, Lenovo, others, and they have included in the service a way to reuse, recycle, or even dispose the better way those electronic devices. So my advice is keep an eye on IT provider solution services that keep evolving year after year, and some of those new offers address some of these themes.
Thank you, Fernando. I think that point of being aware of the new features and new services available from our vendors and partners, such as renting hardware and letting the vendor look after that hardware life cycle, and continuing to look at cloud, and probably playing back a bit of what Gonzalo said earlier of that total impact analysis and considering the end-to-end life cycle is really important. So thank you. Gonzalo, what advice would you like to share for everyone here today?
Well, thank you, Toby. It's always a challenge to give someone's advice when we are among colleagues, right? Other CEOs. But the first one is, and forgive you for this, Toby, take advantage of Logicalis global presence. Okay. Yeah. And why do I say this? It's a moving target. It's a moving target at this stage, and of course, companies like Logicalis have use cases, examples, technologies, people within Toby's team that can help push the agenda. Okay, and when I say help push the agenda, that's my second comment. It's not just the technological agenda that we're pushing. It's what are we driving at with this technology? I'm a CIO. I get excited with technology. So when someone tells me, let's use this and there's a new thing there, and let's push for that in that direction. I mean, I'm really excited about that. And but what I've noticed with sustainability is it drives us to find the keystone on how best to use that technology. So that's my second advice. Sometimes it's not really the cutting edge technology that will make the difference. It's just making sure you have it. You have the data that can support decision making, and you have the data at the right time so that decision making process can occur each day, each moment, at the front office, at the local operation teams. So that's my second advice. Try to push sustainability's data into the operating teams. Third advice, if I might call it like that, is a more simple one. This is coming to stay, and I'm proud to say that. We at Prestada, we have a program called Planet Guest, and the reason for that is that we believe we are just guests in our planet. We're not more than that. And this is here to stay. And if we as CIOs can play a part, it's a really nice thing to do. As a CIO, and I'm forgive me also all the people that are listening. As a CEO, we are under pressure from everyone, right? It's a really tough job, and we like it, and we do it, and we enjoy it. But it's a really tough job. And now we have another thing on top, right? Sustainability. But this one is here to stay, and so let's embrace it, and let's push that agenda. Let's help push that agenda forward within technology, within IT.
Thank you, Gonzalo. Some really practical insights there. I really like your point that someone else has gone first, and there's always experience that we can leverage globally, not just within our organization, not even just within our partners, but in the broader community. And as you said, it's all about making the biggest impact. And often the biggest impact isn't from cutting edge, so we can learn from others. So thank you. Irvin, are you able to share your advice?
Okay, of course, journey to the sustainable game requires big support from all related stakeholders. When you have already had the support, make sure the technology initiative must be directly attached to the KPI. Because if you spend everything not attached to KPI, of course, the impact will not be there, right? Or maybe some companies, they are quote unquote being pushed by the regulator to play this sustainability game by the regulator. especially for those public listed company like us, right? As a technology person, we will for sure will be demanded to contribute to the journey nowadays, right? Again, we need to know the company vision and KPI related to it prior to setting up some technology initiative. So vision and KPI before we go for an initiative. Without a KPI, of course, we will not see the impact, because the business is about the impact.
Thank you, Irvin. A really important point of having this initiative attached to the company KPI, because then you have that top level support and it flows all the way down. So after this, I'm going to go have a chat to my boss, Bob, about my own KPIs for the next year and see how I can make sure I align that as well. So thank you. Nigel, what advice would you like to offer the senior IT leaders here today?
I think the key thing is to find a way or to have an initiative that really enables your staff to get really involved. From our point of view and in my organisation, I found, for instance, that we didn't really have a good plan for the disposal of IT assets. And it's a question I asked when I came across a storage room with about 600 laptops destined for disposal by an external IT recycler. So I suppose we did have a plan, but due to our outdated policies, a lot of the equipment was destroyed versus being reused or recycled, because our own policies prohibited reuse in case of data loss. Laptops used for corporate use typically have a useful life as a corporate device for about 5 to 6 years, maybe less if it's a more specialist device. However, as a computing device or an internet-connected device, that same unit is useful for personal use for up to 10 years or more. You know, how many of us have got really ancient laptops or PCs at home that we still use? So after reviewing the reuse of IT policy, we updated it to allow for the secure erasure of data before allowing the equipment for reuse, in return for fair market value payment. We established a volunteer scheme with our staff to prepare the devices and then offered them for sale internally. And in the last 12 months, we've sold in excess of 1,000 devices and recouped £100,000 in fees, which we've been able to reinvest directly into purchasing accessories and equipment to support home working. Volunteers are happy because they're involved, and many of them have sustainability as part of their annual objectives, and they can state directly what they've done as part of that activity and their contribution. Our staff are happy because they get to buy cheap laptops and phones for their friends and family. And quite frankly, I'm happy because I can reinvest the money that we get back into equipment to support virtual meetings and home working.
Thank you, Nigel. I think it's so important to get the wider community involved rather than just an IT-led project. I really like that point of getting your staff involved. And also challenging the status quo. You had a recycling plan in place, but by enabling this new scheme, able to just go that little bit further and make it a bit more sustainable, but also helping your staff and their families and the business, and also financially. So a great example of looking a bit outside the box there. Thank you, Nigel. I really enjoyed that one. So the next question for everyone. As we look forward to the future, how do you see sustainability having an impact in your industry? And how's this going to shape the future consumer and how you serve them? Irvin, could I ask you to go first this time, please?
Okay, we are in the property industry. Yeah, of course, the sustainability is going to be an always company focus, because besides just focusing on the financial performance. Yeah, property industry for sure will be demanded to go for zero carbon and emission, especially if we own or operate the high-rise building. So it's a KPI for the zero carbon, right? Let's expand it more. If you're talking about not just the building, we are talking about the city. The demand will not just come from your regulator or tenants, right? But will also come from your visitors, from your residents. Residents nowadays and visitors are looking for a place to live, learn, work, and play in the city that highly consider on the environmental changes and for sure about the greenery issue. Of course, there are some demands from regulator, from citizen, from visitors, from tenant, some technology initiative must be plans ahead. Yeah, be it maybe from the technology point of view, or maybe from no technology point of view. At the end, everything is about customer. At the end, is everything is to increase our customer satisfaction.
Thank you, Evan. Some really good points there about the different demand coming from different places and also the regulatory requirements. But obvious that the property industry in particular has very big drives towards zero for carbon. So thank you. Fernando, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, in Yamaha, we are primarily in the automotive business, in the motorcycle business, and as well as other segments like trucks and vehicles, regulations keep improving in our sector, especially regulations to reduce emissions. That is also affecting the motorcycle business. And as regulations on those keep evolving, we keep investing on our engines, on our motorcycles to have more efficient products, to have less emissions in the environment. So this is one of the things that we are surely doing here in Yamaha. And IT helps to improve engines through simulation, through many other applications we have in the product development area to facilitate that evolution of the product.
Thank you, Fernando. Obviously, the automotive industry is very front of mind with carbon emissions, and the way you're tackling it there is quite interesting. Nigel, research and innovation, quite a different area. What do you think about this topic?
I mean, as a government agency or arm's length body, I see a lot more controls and reporting requirements being placed on us to expose what we're doing and how we're performing in terms of environmental sustainability, not least to show progress against our sustainability strategy, but also because it is gaining a lot more interest across government. So as well as reporting sustainability, we'll start to play a more pivotal role in the procurement process that we have to adopt, and where suppliers will need to make this easy for us in selecting them versus their competitors. And for our users or consumers of our services, I would turn it around and say, how will their expectations influence how we serve them? Sustainability is no longer an option, it's an absolute requirement. And we're finding that the users of our services are getting more and more vocal about what they expect from us as IT leaders.
I think that's a very consistent theme that we hear across every industry is the consumer or the end customer is becoming a lot more vocal about their expectations. And your point on regulatory requirements is a common theme we see as well. So it's not going away. We're just going to have to continue to do more here. But really, the key is to demonstrate progress, or as you said, exposing progress. I think showing what we're actually doing here to avoid being labelled as greenwashing anything. So thank you, Nigel. Gonzalo, what are your thoughts?
Do you know that things have changed over the last year to this year? If you recall, during the COVID pandemic, we had safety and health considerations on our consumers, right? They were keen on understanding how safe it would be to travel and how safe would it be to stay in one of our places. 2023 has been the start of a clear change in hospitality from what we can see. Our guests, our consumers are clearly making choices based on information related to how sustainable that location is. It's just a start, but it's happening, and it's really happening. And it's happening at different points in the customer journey. Of course, during your stay, it happens. People want to understand how can they have behaviors coherent with the sustainability of that location. But also, it happens also before and after the stay. So our guests want to understand if they are traveling into a sustainable location, and after coming back home, what happened next? I mean, what's the impact of their stay? And it's something quite interesting, because at the same time, you have people trying to enjoy themselves. I mean, they go on vacation. They don't want to have the problems and the issues but we're seeing the data, and we're seeing consumer preferences moving into a more sustainable kind of hospitality. That translates into very clear things. Waste. How much waste do you produce during a week's vacation, for example? Energy consumption. What did you do then? And thirdly, water management. How much water did you spend? These are just 3 examples of clear things that our consumers are looking into. It's going to go further. I mean, it's at the start, but we already have meaningful consumers asking those questions when selecting a vacation destination, during the stay and after the stay.
Thank you, Gonzalo. It shows that there's so much more to do here in this area, moving beyond just power consumption to looking into waste management and water management, and even the fact that customers, your customers, when they're choosing where to go on holiday to switch off and unwind, are still using sustainability in that decision matrix of where to go and where to choose. So fascinating. Thank you. So this leads us to the final question for today's panel session. Earlier on in the event today, we heard from IDC, and I'd like everyone's opinion on the following. Is it true, as IDC say, that driving the sustainability agenda is actually driving and in some cases improving future business? Irvin, what are your thoughts on this statement?
Fully agree with IDC's statement. In fact, we have started doing the ESG since 3 years ago, maybe, as part of the compliance from regulator, from SGX especially. But actually, the benefit is not only to comply with the regulation. The benefit, we can enjoy the benefit, direct benefit to the company.
Thank you, Irvin. Gonzalo, what are your thoughts about IDC's statement?
That's a tough question. Well, IDC's job is to predict. We're here to support and enable. But what we're seeing currently is that new investments that we're doing need to reach the threshold of sustainability, of key metrics in sustainability. So that's already in place. That means that we are rejecting stuff. So though I'm not sure yet how that's going to change our business. What I can tell you is we are rejecting stuff based on sustainability metrics and KPIs. So in the medium term, that will change for sure. And some players will be this position. They'll lack the right positioning statement, the right call to action. Over time. So if you don't adjust to that, it's going to happen. Yeah. My feeling as of today is clearly the following. It's a global business. So even if you think I'm enough, I'm average in my place, right? I'm not that good, but I'm not that bad. So that will not be sufficient going forward. Our consumers look into this from a global perspective. And even if you think you're average, check your average against what? Because that might challenge the kind of business you're in. And to IDC's point, it might drive new businesses, but it might also challenge your current business setting.
Thank you, Gonzalo. What a great challenge to consider the big picture and not just what your direct peers within your country or region are doing, but looking globally to see where you really rank and how you're competing. So I love that. Thank you. Fernando, to close, what are your thoughts on this topic from IDC?
To tell you sincerely, I think yes. For most of the companies, that helps. But particularly here in Yamaha, as I said to you before, we are a 100 years company, and our values, our traditions, our culture, since the early days, focus on respect for on those days, environment, people, and regulation law. So it's not anything very different from what we have done through all our history. We can, for sure, with assistance from marketing and other communication channels, improve that communication to our customers. But actually, it's not very different from what we have done through all our history. It's helpful. I understand, and we understand that customers value that most today than years before. But it's kind of natural for this.
Thank you, Fernando. Really interesting perspective. All four of the panelists, interestingly, align with the CIO survey results that we've done this year that said over half of our respondees said that environment and sustainability is a key differentiator that their customers are demanding, that their market's demanding, and it helps them to be more competitive. And also nearly half of them say that it helps them attract more talent and get the best out of their employees. So I think we're all in strong alignment here with IDC's presentation and statement there as well. So thank you all. So I'd like to thank all of our guests for their time here today. It's been a fascinating conversation with lots of great insights that I'm sure all of our viewers all around the world can appreciate. So I really thank you for the time given here today. Just before we hand back to Bob Balkowski to close out this year's CIO Summit, we'd like to play you a short movie to present Logicalis' new digital fabric platform and how this is helping to our customers improve their visibility on their environmental impact through managed services. Thank you.